5,000 years of interest rates, and then for a period of time we went, let's just bring them down to zero and hold them there. You said that interest rates are the most important invention, and you say that low interest rates are the second most and probably the worst.
Negative, I say
negative rates. Negative rates. This period that we've been through. What do you think that's done specifically to the UK economy? That period.
Well, so we mentioned some of them.
Yeah.
We have a very inflated real estate market, and we had very low savings rates, and it's much harder. Oh yes, so they have another thing. What we haven't talked about is the role that interest plays in determining what we invest in. I don't mean just choosing your stocks and shares, but from actually building what we actually built with our with our capital. And when interest rates are very low, it's the nature of things that people will invest in assets whose returns come over the very long term, and actually real estate is one of those. And we would have been born building more real estate if the planning regulations weren't so depressingly complex. But we also one of the things I point out in the book is that when interest rates are very low, you get these companies that really should go out of business, and they're just very inefficient. They hardly have any profits, and the profits can't even cover their interest costs, even when interest costs are very low. And those are what we call zombie companies.
Yeah, I like that.
And so what was interesting, after the global financial crisis, all the insolvency experts were sort of rubbing their hands, saying, God, we're going to have a lot of business because, all these firms, we've got the so-called Great Recession, all these firms going out of business. But no, interest rates were cut very low. And what you saw is that business insolvencies were actually relatively low, abnormally low, after the global financial crisis. At least I know that from looking at US and UK data. Then we have these businesses that would otherwise have gone bust become your zombies. And the trouble with zombies is that they sort of hang around, they sort of move slowly like zombies. They're the, so to speak, living dead. And they don't invest very much. And once, a sector is sort of surrounded with zombies, no one's really going to start a new business to operate in that area.
Would you say Wilkinson's was a zombie? Wilco's.
Oh, yes.
As soon as the rates came up, they died, right? And
yes.
They were like they just clog up the high street, and it's like,
exactly.
Who's in there? What do they sell?
No, I think that, I think there were huge numbers of zombies, particularly, among unlisted companies one wouldn't really have heard of, relatively small companies. And one of the things about the zombies, they didn't invest very much, and as I say, no one comes into these industries. So they tend to have low productivity growth. So, there's less efficiency. There's less, what's called creative destruction, which is the driving force of capitalism of taking, it's brutal. This guy is failing, going to take his money and give it to these guys who are going to get a higher return. But that's the way, system works, at least should work. And one of the upsides of it is that when you get productivity growth, you get income growth. So what we had after 2008 was the lowest productivity growth in British history since the Industrial Revolution. I mean, an absolutely phenomenal failure. I'm not saying it's 100% linked to the thwarting of this process of creative destruction. It's not 100% linked to the zombie phenomenon, but I think that plays some role. Then now, so other factors, we've already mentioned that households have too much debt because interest being the price of leverage, you lower the price of leverage, you get more leverage. So households have more. Well, they don't in aggregate have more debt, but the mortgage owners hold more debt on their houses. The government, we mentioned, the government were paying 10 basis points. That's 0.1% on their borrowing, in effect, via the Bank of England's quantitative easing operation. So, of course, they went and spent a lot of money and wasted a great deal of money. And my slightly polemical view is that we wouldn't have had such a long and unfocused lockdown during the COVID period, where everyone was put on furlough and whatever. Sunak was giving money to luncheon vouchers, people going to eat in restaurants, whatever, and we wouldn't have that great splurge of money, which seemed so easy at the time. Hey, was easy, but actually has ended up with a huge amount of government debt and all the other ramifications of the lockdown. So I'm leaving aside the government debt. So those are some of the effects of the long period of ultra low rates.
That was a clip from our full-length interview with Edward Chancellor about the impact of ultra low interest rates. You can watch the full episode right here.